So Namaskaram again, and today's session is specifically to discuss prelim paper conducted by Shetty's Institute, Kalyan. And I'm glad that they have allowed us to record the session and upload it on YouTube so that it will be beneficial for not only you but my other student as well as anybody who can who is writing the papers in November attempt, November December attempt, which is still I say still confused. And yesterday also some fake notification was been issued. You don't have to worry about all those issues. What IC has done, IC has to do, they will do it definitely. Even the matter is pending in Supreme Court for the guidelines to be issued for CA exams and what will be the protocol and all. So your focus should be on conducting or doing the study and preparation. I hope this session should add to your knowledge. This should give you an idea how to present answer and what kind of pattern will be asked in the examination. Amit sir, are you saying something? Hello, Amit sir. So let's start. Okay. Network was having some error. I guess you guys can hear me now clearly. Is it? Am I audible to all of you now? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So the overall discussion is about all right. नहीं यहाँ पे कोई instruction देना था यहाँ पे. There is a furniture work going on in our office outside, so it was disturbing us. So I have requested them to stop the work. So let's focus on our paper. So this paper number 4, taxation, will be divided into two segments: direct tax and indirect tax, income tax and GST. Segment 1 will be for 60 marks and section A is for 60 marks, section B is for 40 marks. In that also it is divided into multiple choice question and descriptive question. In multiple choice question as well, you are having case study oriented multiple choice question and directly law based multiple choice question. Working notes are forming important part of your answer, and all working notes assumption has to be clearly mentioned by you in the answer paper. Not only that, question which are based on objective type, multiple choice question type, you are not supposed to show any calculation there. You are just supposed to mark, okay, option number C, option number D, option number E, but option number A. So, but while doing that, you have to do some rough calculation that you can do at the back side of your answer paper, and later on just put a cross mark on it so that examiner knows you have done the calculation, rough calculation. But do not write anything on question paper. This is very important aspect you should know. In ICA exams, you are not supposed to write anything even by using pencil on question paper. This is what they say. If you are not able to answer without marking certain important points in question paper, then mark it by using the pencil, so that even if your examiner catches you while writing something on question paper, you should have option to apologize and erase the content that you have written. But do not write anything by using pen on your question paper. They don't allow it, because you know that it is a area where the cheating can happen, so they don't want any student to write anything on the question paper. Your answer should be based on the provisions of income tax amended by Finance Act 2019. So again, do not confuse with Finance Act 2020, because in industry as of now, we are following Finance Act 2020. The next year students have started studying Finance Act 2020. Newses are based on Finance Act 2020, but your examination is still on Finance Act 2019, because for assessment year 2021, Finance Act 2019 is applicable. Apart from that, I assume all of you have gone through the recent amendments which is shared by ICI in a statutory updates given on the website of the institute. So let's look at this case study based MCQs. Mr. Sarthak, age 37 years, a share broker, sold a building to his friend. So he has sold a building. Building is a capital asset for him because he is a share broker, who is a dealer in automobile spare parts, for 120 lakh as on 10th November 2019, when the stamp duty value was 150 lakh. if you can correlate the language of the question, you will understand the language of the question is similar to somehow one of the question that is there in our IFOS chapter. Okay, similar type of question is there. So 120 lakh is the sale price, whereas stamp duty value was 150 lakh. The agreement was, however, entered as on 1/9/2019 when the stamp duty value was 140 lakh. Now, which stamp duty value should we adopt? Stamp duty value as on date of agreement or stamp duty value as on date of registration? So by default, we adopt stamp duty value as on date of registration. But assessee has given a choice to adopt stamp duty value as on date of agreement if he has received a consideration, full or part, by account pay check, account pay draft, ECS, or other prescribed electronic notified mode. So let's look at this. Mr. Sarthak had received down payment of 15 lakh by cross check from Anay on the date of agreement. Cross check is not acceptable. Cross check is not acceptable. Only account pay check is acceptable. Therefore, date of agreement stamp duty value cannot be considered. Now only date of registration stamp duty value has to be considered. Now, if you focus at date of registration stamp duty value, it is 150 lakh, whereas property was sold for 120 lakh. You know that this is the application of section 50C now. Under section 50C, we are going to take stamp duty value or full value of sale price, whichever is higher, as the full value of consideration. Next point, Mr. Sarthak purchased the building for 95 lakh as on 10/5/2017, 10/5/2017, and he has sold it on 10/11/2019. So 10/5/2017 to 10/5/2018 is the first year. 10/5/2018 to 10/5/2019 is the second year. Okay. And 10/5/2019 is the second year, and property is sold and as on 10/11. That means property is sold after 2 years. Property is sold after 2 years. That means this is a long-term capital asset. This is what another understanding you should have, and this is the cost of acquisition. Okay. Further, Mr. Sarthak also sold an agricultural land situated in a village which has a population of 5,800. Agricultural land situated in a village which has a population 5,800 for 60 lakh to Mr. Vivek as on 1st March 2020, which he acquired for 45 lakh. Stamp duty value of agricultural land was 1/3/2020, or as on 1/3/2020 is rupees 75 lakh. Now please try to understand, this is the agricultural land where the population is 5,800. That means this is a rural agricultural land. And so far as rural agricultural land is concerned, it is not a capital asset. Rural agricultural land is not a capital asset. Therefore, it is not taxable in the act. Okay. So this is what you need to understand. So let's look at the capital gain computation first of all. Let's compute capital gain for Mr. Sarthak. Section 50C application. Full value of consideration. Full value of consideration is 120 lakh or 150 lakh, whichever is higher. At the same time, you need to check whether the full value of consideration exceeds 105% of actual consideration. Now 120 lakh into 105%, if you do, it becomes 126. So is it more than 126? Answer is yes. And because it is more than 126, the full value of consideration in this case should be 150 lakh. Less transfer expenses which are not given in the question, it will give you net consideration. From net consideration, we have to subtract index cost of acquisition. While doing index cost of acquisition, we need to check indexation from the question. So it was purchased for 95 lakh in 2017, 95 lakh 2017. So 95 lakh into CI of transfer year 289 divided by CI of acquisition year 272. So 289 divided by 272. Compute this along with me. You also please practice 289. I know you guys have already done this once. So it is somewhere around 100.9375. If we subtract this, long-term capital gain is around 49.0625 in rupees 49,06,250 rupees. Okay. So let's look at the questions asked by them. This is the basic calculation we are supposed to do. Is there any requirement to deduct tax at source on a consideration paid or payable on transfer of building and agricultural land? So agricultural land is excluded from section 194 IA. You don't have to, you don't have to deduct tax on agricultural land because anyhow that is not taxable. But building, if the consideration is exceeding 50 lakh, then yes, you are supposed to deduct. So what is your answer here? What is your answer? For first, yes. What are the option? Yes, Mr. Anay is required to deduct tax at source under section 194 IA. Mr. Anay, Mr. Anay who has purchased, Mr. Anay who has purchased this house property or building, Vivek is not required because Vivek has purchased agricultural land. So answer number question B is the right answer exactly. So you give your marks accordingly. In respect of transfer of building, capital gain chargeable to tax in the hands of Mr. Sarthak would be, please tell me, capital gain chargeable to tax. We have just computed it because that requires a computation. So this answer is A. Assuming that Mr. Sarthak has other income exceeding basic exemption limit, the tax payable excluding surcharge and health cess on the transfer of building and agricultural land would be, agricultural land not taxable. On building, he has to pay how much? Can you please tell me what is the tax rate on long-term capital gain under section 112? Please tell me. Can you please tell me tax rate? What is the tax rate under section 112? 20%. So 20% into the capital gain that we have computed into 20% here. Please compute. Please compute 20% of this. So this is 9,81,250 rupees. In respect of purchase of building from Sarthak, income chargeable to tax in the hands of Anay would be, now in the hands of Anay, it will be considered as a gift under section 56 subsection 2 clause 10. Why? Because he is receiving property, immobile property for inadequate consideration, and the inadequate consideration shall be compared with the stamp duty value. And the stamp duty value that we have freeze here is the stamp duty value as on date of registration because the consideration was paid by cross check. So the inadequate consideration here is how much? What is the inadequate consideration value here? 120 lakh he has paid, whereas stamp duty value was 150 lakh. What is the inadequate consideration? Please tell me what is the inadequate consideration here? 30 lakh. 150 lakh minus 120 lakh. Okay. So these are the questions that we were supposed to answer. Please give the marks accordingly. Question number 1 to 6 carries 1 marks each. So for each question, you are supposed to give 1 mark. Question number 5. In case assessee being a company, if advance tax payable in the second installment is this, no interest under section 234C shall be payable. Can you please tell me what is the installment? What are the installment of advance tax? Installment of advance tax in quarter number 1, quarter number 2, quarter number 3, quarter number 4. Installments 15%, 45%, 75%, and last one is 100%. Right? And government have given concession because the advance tax is based on estimation. Government have not given concession in last 2 quarters, but in first 2 quarters, if you deposit 12% or 37%, up to 12% or up to 37%, then concession is given to the assessee where interest will not be charged. So in this case, obviously, the answer advance tax is payable, not 37, 36%. If advance tax is payable by the company, the second installment, they are talking about second installment, not the first installment, so it is about 36%. 36%. Interest is not chargeable if they have paid. Come on, tell me. 36 or less or 36 or more. What is the answer? There are two 36. So you are supposed to be minimum 36. That means if the answer has to be 36 or five got question number 5. No interest under section 36. In case SSC being a company, advance tax is payable in the second installment. No interest under shall be payable. So answer should be B. Answer has to be B. 36 or more. Okay, fine. Answer has to be B. Next, the deduction of tax at source from salary shall be made at a time of. Now, usually deduction of TDS happens on accrual, that means date of credit or date of payment, whichever is earlier, but salary is the exception to that because salary gets accrued every day. Therefore, we have not kept this particular point. The deduction of TDS in case of salary under section 192 has to be made on the date of payment, on the date of payment, on the date of payment. Is it right? On the date of payment, are you getting this? On the date of payment. Yes. So these are the first 6 MCQ that we have handled for 1 mark each. If you have given the correct answer, then mark accordingly. Next, question number 7 to question number 12 carries 2 marks each. So these are the 2 marks based questions. So little calculation is expected from you. Calculate exempt HRA from the following details. So you have to compute exempt HRA, not taxable HRA. Mr. J is entitled for basic salary 50,000 per month and DA 10,000 per month, 40% of which forms part of the retirement benefit. Okay. He is also entitled for HRA 20,000, HRA of rupees 20,000 per month. He actually lives with his parents in Mumbai and does not pay any rent. Does not pay any rent. Does not pay any rent. If he is not paying any rent, will you compute HRA? He does not pay any rent. Obviously, no. Market rent and all is not relevant here. So your answer should be, please give me your answer. Your answer should be nil. Okay. Mr. J, a person of Indian origin, visited India on 5th Feb 2019 and plans to stay here for 210 days. Okay, so May to 210 days he is going to stay in India. During 4 years prior to AY 1920, that is 1819, he was in India for 950 days. Okay, so he was there for more than 730 days. Earlier to that, he was never in India. Okay, he was never in India. For the AY 1920, that is previous year 1819, what is the status of Mr. J? Please tell me, what is the status of Mr. J? Is staying in India for 210 days. And if you compute from Feb 2019, you ignore Feb 2019 and March, 2 months data you have to ignore. Okay, because that is preceding to previous year data. In previous year, he's going to stay for how many days? You have to ignore 1890 days. You have to consider only 1920 days. How many days he will be staying in 1920? You have to consider number of days only in the current year, 1920. In 1920, he's staying for 156 days. Okay, in 1920, he's staying for 156 days. Arpit is saying 156. Okay, I can rely on that. Kind of approximately 156 days, which is less than 181 days. And he's a person of Indian origin. Now, person of Indian origin who is visiting India For him, 60 days condition is not applicable. For him, 60 days conditions is not applicable. So you don't have to check what are the number of days stayed in India for last 4 days. So because he is not satisfying the first condition itself, what is the mistake student does here? They focus on 210 days. But look at the year. He has come in India during 1819, had continued his stay in India, in 1920. Residential status we compute year wise, not continuously. Okay, so per year you have to per year separately you have to compute residential status, determine residential status. So for here answer is non-resident because he stayed in India for less than 182 days. That suffice. Okay, Mr. J stays in New Delhi. Mr. J stays in New Delhi. His basic salary is 10,000 per month. DA 60%, which forms part of the pay, okay, is 6,000 per month. HRA 5,000 per month. He is entitled to commission of 1% of turnover achieved by him. Mr. J pays a rent of 5,500 per month. 5,500 per month. The turnover achieved by him during the current year is 12 lakh. The amount of HRA exempt under section 1013A is. Please tell me, how will you compute HRA exemption here in working note? First, we need salary. Salary is equal to basic salary plus a DA in terms plus turnover commission. Turnover commission. Okay. So what is the salary? Can I rely on that number? 48,480. Should I rely on this or should I compute? Girish, is it a salary amount or are you telling me the HRA amount? HRA amount. You are telling me HRA amount. Okay. Let me compute. Let's see. Let's see. Then we will compute salary. Basic salary. And how do we compute HRA? How do we compute HRA? Come on, tell me. How do we compute HRA exemption? First HRA exemption. 40% or 50% of salary. Second, actual HRA received. Third, rent paid minus 10% of salary. Okay. Now he's staying in Delhi. As per the question, he stays in Delhi. So Delhi comes in metro. So we will start with 50%, isn't it? We will start with 50%, not 40% of salary. Now what will be the salary here? What will be the salary? So basic salary, whole relevant year we have to consider. They have not mentioned any date. So whole year is the relevant year. So for whole year salary will be 1,20,000. Basic salary will be 1,20,000. DA 6,000 per month. What is the data for DA? 60% of which 60% of which forms part of the pay is rupees 6,000. So 60% DA. 60% DA forms part of the pay. DA 60% of which forms part of the pay. To 60%, 43,200. Plus turnover commission. What is the turnover commission? 1%. 12 lakh multiplied by 1% will be 12,000. So 1,20,000 plus 43,200 plus 12,000. 1,75,200. 7,600. He's getting HRA 5,500, right? No. He's getting HRA 5,000. 5,500 is his rent. Okay, whichever is lower is the HRA exemption. So the answer is 48,480. All right. Next, JHA company is a partnership firm with 3 partners. The capital of each partner was dash. Okay. The partnership did authorize interest on capital 15%, and the working partner salary to each partner was 10,000 per month for all the partners. The total sales amounted to 70 lakh. The total income of the firm under section 44 AD would be. So they have given total income under section 44 AD would be. So what will be the income under section 44 AD? That is directly related to turnover, not related to any other data. Just look at the turnover amount, 70 lakh. Now 44 AD gives you 2 options, either 6% or 8%. 6% or 8%. If they mention the nature of turnover, if it is a banking turnover like account pay check, account pay draft and all, then your answer should be based on 6%. If nothing is mentioned, then our answer has to be based on 8%. The total income should be 5,60,000. Okay, next. The concept of partial integration of agriculture income with non-agriculture income is applicable to. Partial integration is applicable to. This is theory based question. Come on, please tell me. Yeah, individual HF. GGC Limited contributed 15% of the salary of the employee Mr. J toward the recognized provident fund. The amount liable to tax in the hands of Mr. J would be 15% they have contributed, would be 3%. Exceeding 12% would be taxable. So that answer is C. Okay, next. Descriptive questions. Question number 1 is compulsory. So you need to keep this in mind. Your question number 1, which will be of 14 mark, it has to be compulsory attend, and questions are having fear about this question itself. If you are confident enough, then solve this question. If you're not confident enough, then keep it for the last. I'm not saying leave it, but keep it for the last if you're not confident enough to solve the question, but do not solve the wrong question. If you're not confident about question number 1, then attempt any 2 questions from remaining 3 questions. Please go and solve balance 2 questions first, where you are having more confidence than solving the wrong question. Question number 1 is compulsory and you should attempt in exam. Even if you don't know something, you will know. It will never happen that you don't know anything about the question. You can solve this question to the maximum extent that you know. Okay. So here, because we are running out of the time, so we will just flip the answer and we'll check the answer. Computation of total income and tax liability. Obviously, it will be tax liability question. Mrs. Rani, a resident 50 years. So you have to keep the age in mind 50. That means she is not senior citizen and all. Is running an acupuncture clinic. Her income and expenditure account and other relevant information for the 31st March 20 are given below. Okay. So income expenditure account, in this case, we have to check whether, obviously the question is from PGBP and how many more heads are there. So fees received from client, this is PGBP income. Dividend from Indian company, this will be exempt under section 1034. Up to 10 lakh it is exempt. Okay. Winning from lottery, net of TDS 14,000 plus 6,000. This income 14,000 is credited, so this income will go in IFOS. So this is IFOS aid. IFOS special income taxable at the 30% income tax refund. This also will be subtracted. Next, Our starting point will be income as per or net profit as per P&L account. Donation to Prime Minister National Relief Fund, ATG. Depreciation disallowed, medicine and needles, staff salary and clinical rent. Now look at the adjustment. Depreciation in respect of the all asset has been ascertained to 60,000 as per income tax. So disallowed as per books of account, allowed as per income tax. Very common adjustment. Medicine and needles of 22,000 have been used for her family. Personal expenditure disallowed under section 37(1). Fees received include 24,000 being honorarium for valuing acupuncture examination and support. Honorarium, this should be the IFOS income, it should not be the PGBP income. So we will remove it from PGBP and take it into IFOS. She has also received 57,860 as the maturity of LIC policy not included in above income and expenditure account. Okay, maturity of LIC is usually exempt. Okay, she has paid LIC premium 12,000 for self and sum assured 50,000. So she is paying LIC. Now 10% of the sum assured is the limit. So 10% of sum assured is 5,000. So ATC deduction, she will get deduction under ATC. She has paid 2,500 for purchase of lottery ticket. This is ignored. This should not be allowed as a deduction. Compute the total income and tax payable, 14 mark. Very easy question. Do not expect this kind of easy question in examination, but still, let's look at this. Net profit as per income tax account. Yes, so income expenditure account is given here. 3,08,000. Whatever incomes which does not belong to PGBPL, we have to subtract. So income tax refund, dividend from company, winning from lottery, honorarium. So all these items are removed. At the same time, allowable depreciation as per income tax, they have deducted. Usually when we do practice, we first do add adjustment and then we do less adjustment. That also you can follow, no problem in changing the sequence. You can also do add, less, or you can do add less according to your choice. You are free to follow the pattern. Next, expenditure debited but not allowable. So donation not allowable because it's not a business expenditure. Depreciation as per books of account is disallowed. Cost of medicine for self is personal expenditure, therefore it is not this is also not allowed. So these are the total this is total business income. Income from other sources, honorarium fully taxable. Winning from lotteries, gross amount will be taxable. Dividend from Indian company exempt under section 1034, so not taken here. This is the total income, 3,65,000. LIC, ATC, deduction, premium for self, sum assured shall be allowed only 10% of capital sum assured because the policy is taken after 1/4/2012, after 1/4/2012. So maximum 5,000 deduction will be allowable. And deduction under ATG for donation, Prime Minister National Relief Fund. There is a working note about it, ATG, you know, for that we have the working note. So this is the deduction. And the net income is 3,40,000. In that, now you might think that because the total income is less than 5 lakh rupees, I will not be able to, I should not be paying any tax. This is not the case. Because you are having lottery income here, we have to compute a separate tax under section 115 BB at the rate of 30%. Okay, so 20,000 into 30% is 6,000 rupees. And then the balance income, on the balance income means 3,20,000, 3,40,000 minus 20,000 minus 2,50,000. The balance income, you have to compute 5% on that. Okay, so let's look at the 5% of this. 3,40,000 minus 70,000 into 5%, that amounts come to 3,500. So your net tax liability come to 9,500. Now many people think that rebate is not available against lottery income, which is the wrong understanding. I have told you this even earlier. The deduction of or 87A rebate is available against all income except 112, except 112A, long-term capital gain on share market. Apart from this section, this deduction of rebate is available against all incomes in income tax. So 9,500 will be deducted and then your net amount will be nil. But because you have paid the TDS, you have to give the effect of TDS and then this will be your refund amount, and then appropriate notes will be written here. Prime Minister National Relief Fund is available for 100% deduction. How many of you have got this correct? This 6,000 rupees, please let me know. How many of you have got this answer? Or at least nil? Please tell me. Shubham, good. Okay, you have got up to nil. So student who have reached up to nil and have forgotten giving effect of TDS, please consider 12 marks. Okay, please consider 12 marks subject to you have written the notes, the refund and all this. For presentation you can deduct the 2 marks. Okay, so this is how you can mark yourself, and I assume you have written the notes. If you have not written the notes, not only for notes, every student will write in a different language, therefore I can't read the exact line to line notes. So but you are supposed to write at least 5 to 8 notes of this particular question. If you have written the notes, then give 12 to 13 marks to you. Student who have reached up to 6,000 rupees, please give 13. So why not 14? 1 mark for presentation. Now I can't see your paper, so I'm just being a conservative approach. So what if my IFOS is wrong? If your PGBP is right, then give 7 to 8 marks. So what is my total income is right? My total income, up to my total income is right, then give around 8 to 10 marks. 8 to 10 marks is enough. For tax calculation, you should preserve at least 4 marks. Up to total income, maximum 10 marks you should consider. At least 4 marks should be allocated to the tax computation mechanism. Am I clear? Can I go ahead? Do you understand how marking will work? Do not afraid of writing incorrect answer. You should be writing answer. What I told you, if you are not confident of question number 1, then you can handle it towards the end, but you must solve, because every step will give you some mark. Every single step will give some mark. And if you can see the answer and the question, 99% question is similar to the study material question, isn't it? This type of question we have dealt in study material. Chalo, next question. Computation of GTI, gross total income in the hands of an individual. So here we have to compute gross total income. If he is a resident, an ordinary resident, and he is a non-resident. So you have to create 2 columns. You know this is on section 5, scope of total income, but only 2 columns, OR and NR. OR and NR. Okay. Rule for OR is global income is taxable. Rule for NR is only Indian income is taxable. This is what you need to keep in mind. Interest income from German derivative bond, 1/3 received in India. Now 1/3 is Indian income taxable to both. 1/3 income is Indian income taxable to both, and 2/3 is taxable only to OR. Do you understand what I said just now? Resident and non-ordinary resident. For him, full income is taxable. For him, only Indian income is taxable. Okay, next. Here, please look at the question. This is for 7 marks. This is for 7 marks, and you have to give effect of 10 adjustment with notes. 10 adjustment with notes. So please consider half mark for each adjustment. Each entry, please consider half mark. Each entry half mark. Okay. And some difficult entry where the some calculation is involved, then you can consider full mark. And if you have given the notes, then you can give the, for presentation, you can consider balance 2 marks. So for each item, if your first item is done, then you should give half mark. Okay, half mark is right. Second, income from agricultural land situated in Malaysia remitted to India. Now foreign agricultural land is taxable to OR, but it won't be taxable to NR because it is a foreign income. Okay, because it is a foreign, OR will pay tax, NR will not pay tax. If this is also right, half mark here, half mark here. Okay, next. Income earned from business in Dubai controlled from India and 20,000 received in India. Now 20,000 received in India will be taxable to all, whether you are resident and non-resident. So out of 75,000, whole 75,000 will become taxable in the hands of ordinary resident, and only 20,000 will become taxable to non-resident. But sir, business control from India, if this guy was NOR, then whole 75,000 would have become taxable to his hand as well. But we don't have NOR, we are having either R or NR. So here 75,000 fully taxable. For NR, only Indian income, income received in India is taxable. If this adjustment is right, then give the half mark. Next, profit from business in Mumbai controlled from Australia. Profit from business in Mumbai. It is the Indian income, and Indian income is taxable to all, whether you are a resident or non-resident. 175 is taxable to both. 175 is taxable to both. So here also you can give half mark. Next, interest received from Ashok, okay, on loan provided to him for a business in India. Interest received from Ashok on a loan provided to him for business in India. Now, loan is applied in India. That means source of income is located in India. And because source of income is located in India, it has to be Indian income. Now, I don't know what is this F35. It can be 35,000 rupees. Yeah, it is 35,000 rupees. So 35,000 rupees, because the loan or interest is derived from source located in India. It is section 9(1) income deemed to be accrued and arise in India or accrued in India. So if this is also right, then give the half mark. Okay. Taxable to both. Taxable to both. Dividend from Brown Limited, an Indian company, under section 115. Now dividend from Indian company is exempt up to 10 lakh rupees under section 1034. Therefore, it should not become income in anyone's hand. So this is exempt under section 1034. Next. Profit from business in Canada controlled from Mumbai. 60% of profit deposited in bank in Canada and 40% remitted to India. Now, remittance is not considered as the Indian income. This is a pure foreign income. Business is Canada. Controlled from Mumbai doesn't make any change. For non-resident, foreign income remains foreign income. For ordinary resident, whether it is the Indian income or foreign income, it is taxable. So for ordinary resident, whole 60,000 will become taxable. For NR, it won't be taxable just because it is controlled from India. If there was a column of NOR, for NOR column, we would have written this particular amount. But for NR, foreign income is not taxable at all. Okay. Next, amount received from NRI for use of know-how for his business in Singapore. Now, please understand, amount received from NRI for use of know-how for business in Singapore. Now, business is located in Singapore. That means source of income is located outside India. Therefore, it is a foreign income. Foreign income is not taxable in the hands of NR, but it will definitely be taxable in the hands of OR, because OR pays tax on global income. So 80,000 here dash. Next. Dividend received from foreign company in India. Dividend received from foreign company in India. Now, because it is received in India, it will become taxable to both. Because it is received in India, it is taxable to both. Okay. Next. Past untaxed foreign income brought to India. Now, this is not an income. This is a capital receipt. So this is not taxable at all. So dash. So the total amount is 12,42,000 and 2,62,000. How many of you got it right? 100% right. How many of you? Again, very important part is the notes. Notes are important. Okay, I hope you are done with the marking. I told you every adjustment, if it is right, half mark, wrong, ignore. Okay, and then make a total. Next question. Liability for TDS. Now this question is on TDS. People usually leave this chapter in option. I don't know why, but sometimes this comes, and if it comes for 7 marks and all, you regret it, because part A of the question was based on our favorite chapter, scope of total income, and part B is a TDS. Many people make this mistake of leaving TDS chapter in option, which is wrong. You should not do this. You should study this chapter in detail. We have already recorded few lectures of TDS chapter and uploaded on YouTube. If you are not confident, please go through those lectures, but do not leave this chapter in option. Liability for TDS. The following issue arises in connection with the deduction of tax at source under chapter 17B. Discuss the liability for tax deduction in these cases. An employee of the central government received arrears of salary for earlier 3 years. he inquires whether he is liable for deduction of tax on entire amount during the current year. So whenever arrears of salary is received, there is a section 89 relief. Okay, section 89 relief you have to consider, and then after that, if the taxable salary is more than basic exemption limit, then only you have to deduct the TDS. Otherwise, you are not supposed to deduct the TDS. Look at this. As per section 192, tax deductible at source by any person who is responsible for paying any income chargeable under their salary. However, under section 192(2)(a), the employee will be entitled to relief under section 89. Consequently, he will require to furnish to the person responsible for making the payment of such particular in form and verified in such manner as may be prescribed, and therefore the person responsible for making the payment, that means employer, shall compute the relief and take it account while making the deduction at source from the salary. Okay, first point was that. ATV theory question, if it is right, somehow it is right, then you can give half mark. 7 marks we have to answer 6 point, so you can consider for 1 mark each, you can consider it. Okay, ATV channel pays 10 lakh as a prize money to winner of quiz program. Now whenever you pay prize money, you have to deduct TDS under section 194B. So at the rate of 30%, because 30% is the tax rate, and the prize money is 10 lakh, which is about 10,000. So yes, section 193, the person responsible for paying winning from the card game and other game in amount exceeding 10,000, which is the threshold limit, shall be at the time of payment. At the time of payment, shall be deduct TDS at the rate of 30%. So 10 lakh into 30% is equal to 3 lakh is the TDS amount that you are supposed to make. Next. State Bank of India 50,000 per month to the central government for building in which one of its branches is situated. Now, whenever bank or someone like this is paying income to government of India, please understand government is excluded from TDS application. Government that don't want their TDS should be deducted, because government is not going to pay income tax. So it doesn't make any sense to deduct tax in respect of the government. So there is a concession given under section 196 in TDS provisions. Payment made to central government are not liable for tax deduction at source. Are not liable for tax deduction at source. Therefore, you should keep this in mind. For government, section 196, it comes usually. Okay. Next one. A television company pays 50,000 to cameraman for shooting the documentary film. Now, film artist, not only film artist, anybody who is associated with film industry comes under professional category. So they falls under 194J, and 194J has a threshold limit of 30,000 rupees. 194J, and any professional payment made out more than 30,000 rupees shall be subject to the TDS at the rate of 10%. So 50,000 is subject to TDS. If cameraman is the employee of TV company, the provision of 192 will apply. But if he's a professional man, 194J will apply. Here in it is assumed that he is a professional person. Since the amount paid exceeds 30,000, therefore 10% will have to be deducted at the time of credit of 50,000 or his payment, whichever is earlier. So TDS amount will be 50,000 into 10% is equal to 5,000. Next. State government pays 20,000 as a commission to one of its agent for sale of lottery ticket. Sale of lottery ticket, selling lottery ticket is the ganda kam. I have told you this. Therefore, 194G is applicable. 194G is applicable if your commission amount exceeds 50,000 rupees, 15,000 rupees, 15, and TDS rate under commission 194H, 194G, 194D. All these three sections are for commission. 5% is the rate. So under section 194G, the person responsible for paying to any person stocking, distributing, purchasing, or selling the lottery ticket shall at the time of credit of commission or payment, whichever is earlier, deduct 5%. So deduction shall be made only if the commission exceeds 15,000. Here it exceeds. Therefore, yes, 20,000 into 5% is 1,000 rupees. And the payment by way of Turf Club Award jackpot 5 lakh rupees to winner to one of the races, horse races 194 BB, Bada Bazigar. Okay. And obviously 30% is the tax liability, winning from horse races, 30% TDS will be deducted. This is a 7-mark question. Each point carries 1 mark. If you have given the right answer, give 1 mark to you. Give 1 mark for ICI. All right. All right. Question number 3A. Computation of income from house property. Mr. Raphael constructed a shopping complex. He had taken a loan of 25 lakh for construction of the said property as on 1/8/2017 from SBI at the rate of 10% for 5 years. The construction was completed as on 30th June 2018. 30th June 2018 falls in financial year 18-19. So from 18-19, he will start taking the deduction of pre-construction interest. Any interest paid by him in 17-18 would be considered as a pre-construction interest. Rental income received from shopping complex is 30,000 per month. For let out for whole year, okay, this is the actual rent. Municipal tax paid for the shopping complex was 8,000. Arrears of rent received from the shopping complex is 1,20,000. So you know arrears is taxable under section 25A after standard deduction of 30%. Interest on loan taken from SBI for purchase of house for his own use for residence period 1920 3 lakh. You are required to compute income from house property for Apple. Now interest for self-occupied property is 3 lakh. So you should know for SOP we are having maximum limit of 2 lakh. Maximum limit of 2 lakh. So there will be loss of 2 lakh rupees and then there will be income from house property. You know how to compute it. Very easy question again. Let out property shopping complex 30,000 into 12. This will be the gross annual value. Assumption will be in the absence of information, gross and actual rent to be taken as the gross annual value. Municipal taxes paid deducted, net annual value 3,52,000. Then stand deduction under section 24. Standard deduction 30% under section 24A and interest on housing loan under section 24B. Under section 24B. Only 2 deduction here. The working note is required because there is a pre-construction interest involved here. So pre-construction period starts from 1st August 2017 and ends on 31st March 2018, which is 17-18. The interest for the state period for 8 months shall be 25 lakh into 10% into 8 months divided by 12. So that is 1,66,000. 1/5 of which will be allowed as the deduction in first 5 years. Such interest will be allowable in 5 equal installment from 18-19 onwards. So that is 33,333. Interest of rupees 2,50,000 for the current year will be deductible. So 2,50,000 plus 33 will be total interest, total deduction will be 2,83,333. Then there is a loss from let out property, 36,000 is the loss. This is the first loss. Now arrears of rent received. Arrears of rent received is 84,000. 84,000 working note number 3. Taxable value of rent received is 1,20,000 minus 30% of standard deduction is 84,000. You could have shown this working note here as well. So arrear net income is 84,000. So total income from let out property is 47,067. And there is a loss from self-occupied property, which is maximum restricted to 2 lakh rupees. So the net loss from house property is 1,52,933, which is available for set off, as well as if you cannot set off, then you can carry forward. If your calculation of the marks for this question are 6 marks. So let's allocate marks. If your calculation for SOP, okay, if your calculation for SOP is right, that means up to here, if it is right, then please give 4 marks up to here. Okay, assuming you have written the notes. If you have not written the notes, if you have done some wrong calculation, then deduct 1 mark for each mistake. Maximum 4 mark I'm saying you should give here. If your arrears of rent is right, then here it should give 1 mark. And if you have computed this loss rightly, then this is another 1 mark, assuming you have written the notes. So this is how you should give the marking for house property question. Next. Computation of capital gain and tax liability. Mr. Roy, 55-year, owned a residential house property in Ghaziabad. It was acquired by Mr. Roy as on 10/10/86 before 2001. So you know the actual cost of fair market value of whichever is higher. For 6 lakh rupees, the fair market value as on 1/4/2001 was 18 lakh. So we take whichever is higher. He sold it for 53 lakh as on 4/11/2019. The stamp duty value was 85 lakh. So obviously we have to compare this and we have to take whichever is higher. Assessee paid 2% as a sale consideration as a brokerage for the property. So 2% transfer expenses. Now the 2% student wrongly apply on 85 lakh because full value of consideration is 85 lakh. But please understand, the broker doesn't take, the broker in industry, they don't take this 2% on stamp duty value. They take it on actual consideration. And here actual consideration for us is 53 lakh. So this is one of the common mistake that we do. So please compute this 2% on sale consideration and not on the full value of consideration. There's a difference between sale consideration and full value of consideration. Mr. Roy acquired a residential property at Kolkata as on 10th December 2019. Okay, so he sold residential house property, acquired residential house property. Which section should reflect in your mind? Which section should reflect in your mind? 54. So we will talk about 54 later on. First, let's compute capital gain on this question. Okay, let's look at the capital gain calculation. So full value of consideration is 85 lakh. Transfer expenses 2% on 53 lakh. Very important. Okay, one of the common mistake this is the students are making here. So if your net consideration is right, then please give some marks here. This is 8 mark question. So I would like to give you 2 marks up to this level because you have applied section 50C, and transfer expenses, if rightly computed, then up to 2 marks. Index cost of acquisition, okay. Then long-term capital gain, if you are computed up to here, long-term capital gain correctly, then 1 mark, another 1 mark you should give. The long-term capital gain is 31 lakh 92,000. Now we have to compute the deductions or exemptions. Mr. Roy acquired residential property at Kolkata. Kolkata is in India, so eligible for exemption 10 lakh, and deposited 7 lakh on 10th April 2017 and 5 lakh rupees on 15th June 2017 in capital gain bond in Rural Electrification Corporation Limited. He deposited 4 lakh rupees on 6 July 2020 and 3 lakh rupees on 1st November 2020 in capital deposit scheme of Nationalized Bank for construction of additional floor of residential house property in Kolkata. Now, so far as the deduction under section 54 is concerned, you get deduction of investment in house property. Now here investment in house property, primarily he has done 10 lakh rupees. Primarily he has done 10 lakh rupees here. Directly he has invested 10 lakh rupees. Okay, directly he has invested 10 lakh rupees here. And apart from that, he is having planning to construct a second floor or first floor in that particular property. For that, he has deposited this money in capital gain account scheme. But as per the in 54 laws or capital gain account scheme, the money has to be deposited before filing return or due date of return, whichever is earlier. Now here, he has deposited this money as on 6 July 2020, and this money was deposited in November 2020. November 2020 is outside the due date of filing the return. Therefore, this 3 lakh rupees will not be eligible for deduction, but definitely this 4 lakh rupees will be eligible for deduction. So 10 lakh plus 4 lakh, this 14 lakh should be eligible as a deduction or exemption under section 54. So total exemption under section 54 will be 14 lakh. If it is done rightly, then give the 1 mark and look at the note. Look at the note. Exemption under section 54 is available in 1 or 2 residential house property are purchased within 1 year before 2 years after the date of purchase. Here, new house is purchased within the said time limit. Further, the cost of new residential house is less than the capital gain. The capital gain to the extent of new house will be exempt. Beside amount deposited in capital gain account scheme on or before due date or furnishing of return. This is very important. Okay. Shall also qualify for the deduction even if it is deposited for construction of the additional floor, but only before due date. So before due date, you have deposited only 4 lakh. So 3 lakh rupees should be ignored. Now, the deposit is or purchase of bond of RECL qualifies for exemption under section 54 EC. 54 EC exemption is available only to 54 EC exemption is available only to the extent of 50 lakh, maximum 50 lakh. And here you have to deposit within 6 months from date of transfer. Now, date of transfer here was 4th November 2019. 4th November 2019. 4th November 2019, and from that within 6 months you are supposed to deposit the money. Look at this, within 6 months. So this 7 lakh rupees he has deposited as on April 10th April. So this falls in 6 month criteria, but June will not fall because June will not fall in 6 months. June is beyond 6 months. So that will not be qualified for the deduction under section 54 EC. So look at the line. Exemption under section 54 EC is available in respect of investment in bond of Rural Electrification Corporation only if the investment is made within the period of 6 months after the date of such transfer. In this case, investment was made after the date of transfer was 50 lakh, 5 lakh shall not be qualified for exemption under section 54 EC. So this is note that you are supposed to write. And only 7 lakh rupees exemption to your taxable long-term capital gain will be 10 lakh 92,000. The total income is around 10 lakh 92,000. Now we have to compute capital gain. Compute the capital gain chargeable to tax for the assessment year 2021 and income tax chargeable there, and assuming Mr. Roy has no other income. Now Mr. Roy doesn't have any other income. That means his basic exemption limit is completely unexhausted. And whenever basic exemption limit is completely unexhausted, that much deduction you can take against the capital gain. And the capital gain here is 10 lakh 92,000. And because the age of Mr. Roy, they have not mentioned, I guess they have not mentioned Mr. Roy's age, then we will assume he's a normal, okay, 55 years. That means he's a normal citizen. He's a normal, 55 years, he's a normal citizen. So for him, basic exemption limit would be 2.5 lakh that we will apply against. Basic exemption limit would be 2,50,000 that we will deduct from 10 lakh 92,000. Okay. So look at this, 20% rate, 10 lakh 90,000 minus basic exemption limit of 2,50,000, assuming that is a resident in India. So 8,42,000 multiplied by 20%, this 1,62,000 will be the 1,60,400 will be the income tax liability. Since the total income of Mr. Roy exceeds 5 lakh, he is not entitled for rebate under section 87A, so rebate won't be available, but you have to apply for health and education cess. So health and education cess and balance marks are allocated for tax calculation. Up to here we have computed 1 mark for 54 EC. Out of 8 marks, 5 marks for capital gain calculation and 3 marks for tax calculation you should give along with notes. If you have not written notes appropriately, then deduct appropriate marks. 1 or 2 marks you can deduct always. So for tax calculation, balance 3 marks you can reserve. Anybody got this answer right? Capital gain or tax liability, or both? Anybody in your batch? Question number 4. Computation of total income of Mr. Balaji furnishes the following information for financial year ended 31st March 2020. Pension from central government. People think that pension from central government will be exempt, but it is not a case. Rent from let out property, interest on money borrowed from let out property paid. So interest on let out property, this will be allowed as a deduction. Interest on money borrowed for let out property unpaid is okay. Deduction of interest under house property head is allowed on accrual basis. Income from business in trade, grains and pulses. Okay, so they have given PGBP. Loss from speculation in grain and pulses. So loss from speculation business you cannot set off against ordinary business. Okay, loss from speculation in jewelry, this also you cannot set off. Unabsorbed depreciation of discontinued textile business for assessment year 17-18 years, this you can set off. Carry forward of business loss can be set off only against business head, not against any other head. He let out the factory building with the machinery for the monthly rent of 20,000 rupees. Okay, this will be taxable. This depends on the intention of the assessee. If intention of assessee is to earn the business income, then it will be taxable under business head. If it's not business, then it will be taxable under IFOS. The WDV of the factory building as on 1/4/2019 was 8,10,000 depreciation at the rate of 10%, and WDV of machinery is 4,90,000 depreciation. So depreciation you have to provide, obviously, whether you compute under IFOS or PGBP, you have to provide appropriate amount of depreciation. Compute the total income of Balaji for the assessment year 2021 8 month. Okay, so a lot of adjustments are there. Again, you can give 1 mark for each adjustment. So total it should be around 8 adjustment. We just have to reach to the total income. So if you have done each adjustment correctly, you should give 1 mark. Okay. Income from central government, this is income from salary. So pension is taxable, government pension. But because there is a standard deduction of 50,000, you should provide that. If your income from salary is right, 1,70,000, give 1 mark. 1 mark here. Additional marks you can give for your notes. Okay. Next, income from house property, gross annual value, rent received has been taken as a gross annual value in the absence of information relating to municipal value, fair rent and standard rent. So this is the normal principle that we have to follow, 2,40,000. Municipal taxes paid is not given, net annual value deduction. 30% of standard deduction will be allowable, and interest on capital borrowed will be allowed. Whether it's paid or unpaid, because it is allowed on accrual basis, the note is given for the same. Interest on accrued is allowed, interest accrued is allowed as a deduction under section 24B. Therefore, interest of 12,000 accrued but not paid during the year is also claimed as a deduction. Simple note is given. So 1,72,000, 2,44,000, and there is a loss from house property 4,000. Can I set off loss from house property against income from salary? Answer is yes. You can always set off up to 2 lakh rupees. You can set off. So this law also you have to write in the note. Income from business or profession, income from trading in pulses 4,10,000. Rent from factory building with machinery, they have considered as a business income. Let's look at the note. The composite rent from letting out building along with the machinery is not taxable under the head income from house property. House property, it won't be taxable. If the let out or building are not separate, okay, it would be taxable either as a business income or income from other sources. And in both cases, it will be the same income only. It has been assumed that the composite rent received by Mr. Balaji from letting out a factory building and machinery is not separable, and letting out of the factory building by Balaji is incidental to his main business of trading in grains and pulses. Therefore, such income would be taxable. This is assumption based because they have not provided the appropriate data. So under the head PGBP, you could have also taken under IFRS. It won't be considered as a wrong answer. If you have taken under PGBP, then this note is expected from you. Whether you took it under PGBP or IFOS, in both cases, answer should be same because depreciation will be provided in the both cases. So this is the depreciation, the net income. This is the total business income. From total business income, you can set up the brought forward losses. There is no problem about setting up the brought forward losses. Okay. So if you have computed this income right along with depreciation, then please give the 1 mark here, or you can also give 2 marks. Okay. Brought forward business loss, if you have set off, then give 1 mark up to here. This should be your total income. And then the note, as per section 73, loss from speculation business can only be set off against another speculation business. Therefore, loss from speculation business of purchase amounting to rupees 50,000 and jewelry amounting to rupees 80,000 rupees cannot be set off in current year, since there is no profit under any other speculation business income. The total loss of 1,30,000 has to be carried forward for another 4 years. Yes, you can carry forward succeeding 4 years. It is presumed that loss from speculation of gain and pulses has arisen on account of the hedging contract. Has not arisen on hedging contract. If you assume hedging contract, then we would have allowed as a set off. That's okay. That's another note which is given. If you have given the notes and all, then you can give the whole 7 marks or 6.5 for you. For reaching up to total income, you should give around 5 marks. If your answer is right, then you should give 5. Balance 3 you should reserve for notes and presentation. If you feel you have given the appropriate notes, then give 6, 6.5, 7. Do not give 8 out of it. Okay, next. Or now there is an internal option to this. Briefly mention provisions of Income Tax Act with regarding quoting Aadhaar number under section 139AA. Theoretical provisions are always good provision, because if you know the provision, you can write it in your own language. No need to write as per the exact drafted legal provision of the act. You can write some point that comes to your mind. Look at this. Quoting of Aadhaar number, Aadhaar number in PAN application and return. Every person who is eligible to obtain Aadhaar number shall quote Aadhaar number in application of allotment permanent account number and filing of return. Quoting of enrollment ID. If you have not received the Aadhaar number, then you get enrollment ID. Even you can share that with the Income Tax Department. PAN allot is to intimate Aadhaar number. People who have already obtained PAN before taking Aadhaar, they are supposed to inform their Aadhaar number to Income Tax Department. They call it linking of Aadhaar and PAN. Every person who has allotted permanent account number who is eligible to obtain Aadhaar number shall intimate the Aadhaar number to such authority in such form and the manner as may be prescribed on or before due date, notified by the central government in official gazette. Consequences of failure to intimate Aadhaar number. If person fails to intimate Aadhaar number, the permanent account number allotted to such person shall be made inoperative after the date so notified, but the date is extended, you know that. Okay. Non-applicability. So non-applicability of this particular section, government have power to declare the non-applicability. You know that according to that, people who are above 80-year-old are not supposed to do this. People who are non-resident foreign citizen and people who are citizen of Assam, Jammu Kashmir and Meghalaya, they are not supposed to furnish their Aadhaar number. So very good detailed discussion is done here. Okay. And they have also written about the date which is postponed and is further postponed it. So no need to write that point. Okay. So if you have given some part of the theory, 2 marks, 2.5 marks, you can obtain. Interest payable under section. This is not section 2 MB. This is something typing error. Interest payable under, okay, Mr. Sachal, a resident individual age 54, furnished the following. Okay. Wholesale cloth business, turnover 150 lakh for which accounts are audited under section 44AB. Income from such business is 8,10,000. Okay. Income from other sources 2,70,000. Tax deductions of 25,000 and advance tax paid as on 14th March 2020 is 1,04,000. So we have to compute advance tax. We have to compute overall tax and then we have to deduct advance tax and then we need to check whether assessee has paid appropriate advance tax or not. Obviously, assessee has paid advance tax as on 14th March 2020. That means he has missed the due date of Q1, Q2, Q3. Okay. Return of income will be filed on 11th December 2020, which is the belated return. The assessee is willing to pay requisite self-assessment tax. Calculate the interest payable under section 234B of Income Tax Act 1961. Assume that the return of income would be processed on the same day. Okay. So we have to compute interest under section 234B. Section 234B is applicable when you don't pay advance tax up to 90% of your self-assessment tax. So 10% buffer is given, but at least 90% of your self-assessment tax must be paid before 31st March. If you have failed to pay so, then from 1st April till the date of finalization of your assessment, for those many months, 1% per month or part of the money interest will be charged. Let's look at the calculation. An assessee shall be liable to pay interest under section 234B where the advance tax paid by the assessee is less than 90% of the assessed tax The asset tax means tax assessed minus TDS amount. Okay, so net tax liability. Total income 10 lakh 80,000. Tax on total income. You compute tax on total income. That is very easy. Up to 2.5 lakh nil, 2.5 lakh to 5 lakh, 5%, then 20%, then 30%. 1,36,500. Okay. Health and education says you add 4%, then deduct TDS 25,000. The assessed tax was 1,16,960. Your 90% of tax is 1,05,264, but we have paid only 1,04,000. Yes, we have defaulted in the section 234. Now, what is the shortage? Now, what is the gap? Gap you will compute from assessed tax to tax paid. Assessed tax to tax paid. What is the gap? What is the gap amount? Please understand, since the advance tax deposited falls short 90% of the assessed tax, the assessee shall be liable to pay interest under section 234B. The amount which is payable, amount of interest payable will be assessed tax minus advance tax. So look at this period. Period will be from 1st April to 11th December, but number of months you have to consider. So it will be the 9 months because part of the month is a full month in income tax. Rate of interest will be 1%. So 12,000 into 12,960 into 1% into 9 is equal to 1166 is the interest amount that you are supposed to pay. Okay. Now, apart from that, Mr. Y wants to furnish a return. This was for 4 mark. Very good question for 4 mark. Mr. Y want to furnish a return of income for AY 2021 on 1st April 2021. Can he do so? Answer is no. After completion of assessment, you cannot. After completion of assessment year, you cannot file your return. Maximum date of belated return is end of the relevant assessment year or completion of assessment, whichever is earlier. The belated return under section 139(4) can be furnished up to the end of the relevant assessment year. In this case, the belated return for assessment year 2021 can be furnished up to 31st March. Hence, Mr. Y cannot furnish return as on 1st April 2021. And you should also mention, if he is filing the belated return, then he has to pay fees for defaulting due date under section 234F. Okay. So this was whole discussion about direct tax paper, and I hope you have some clarity about it. And as I told you, we will have another round of paper which will give you more clarity. And if you are still having any question, confusion about examination, you are free to reach to me through WhatsApp or to comments, whatever way you prefer.